Hello, everyone. This is a presentation about Flagler County Assist and how we support Skywarn operations in Flagler County. So, let's talk briefly about Skywarn. It is a National Weather Service program and training in which they train volunteers to become certified storm spotters for the National Weather Service. Volunteers are trained to look for particular things in the sky, particular cloud formations that might actually be a warning sign that a tornado or severe thunderstorm is developing, and also specific severe weather criteria, how, size of hailstones, strength of winds, and that sort of thing. What actually meets severe weather criteria, and then how to report that information to the National Weather Service. Now, many organizations have their own plan to participate in Skywarn. Skywarn alone is not its own organization, but each organization has its own plan to participate in it. This presentation is about how Flagler County Assist supports the program. Good planning makes for a good operation. Skywarn Duty Net Control Station, NCS, that is a net control station. For those who don't know what that means it's a central base station or central radio station in which all other communications are coordinated from. And basically, it's the way to coordinate rather, a radio network, or a net as we call it. So, with that being said, Skywarn Duty Net Controllers are folks that are out there. Their main function is to activate spotter networks when a potential weather hazard is approaching the county. Skywarn net controllers can carry on the duties as long as they have good communications. We chiefly use GMRS, but also we can use amateur radio and a source of alert and able to relay reports. So our Skywarn duty net controllers, they have to have good resources for getting information, communicating that information, and to be able to relay any observations back to the National Weather Service efficiently. These are volunteer positions that rotate based on a schedule, and generally how that works on any given day, there is one couple that monitors from 8 in the morning till about noon, and they're not necessarily monitoring the radio, but they're available, and if there's weather in the area, then they start paying more attention to the radio and paying attention to what the National Weather Service is talking about. But when there's not any weather going on or anything like that, then they're typically not sitting right by the radio. But the first couple carries it from like 8 in the morning to about 4 in the afternoon. There's someone else that picks it up from 4 in the afternoon to about 7 o'clock. There's another couple that takes it from 7 o'clock through about midnight, and then another one midnight through about 8 in the morning. And sometimes that schedule shifts and changes depending on availability of volunteers. Whoops, went a little too far there. Spotters in the field, main function is to monitor local weather conditions around them and report that to net control. Anything that meets National Weather Service criteria has a significant impact. Here's something that's unique to us. Is Flagler County Assist. We are a all broad mode communications organization. We also watch social media feeds, and by watching that and also watching online weather stations, that kind of extends our reach to be able to monitor what's going on in Flagler County when we're impacted by a storm. Skywarn is a primary function and critical function of our organization. Now let's talk about social media a little bit. Some of you may have heard of the Facebook page, Flagler Weather Info. It's actually supported completely by Flagler County Assist. Our volunteers support that page by providing weather information, accurate weather information from the National Weather Service, as well as monitoring for storm reports when hazardous weather is impacting Flagler County. It's an excellent way to do that, and I'll demonstrate that a little bit. So here's one of our volunteers that posted a special weather statement. We had some severe weather going on the other day, and this kind of gives you an idea of the reach. Last month, in the month of March, we reached close to 20,000 people in Flagler County. And again, social media and Facebook and so forth, and should not be your only source for weather warnings when there is severe weather. We encourage folks to be signed up for Alert Flagler. You can do that by going to www.flaglercounty.gov/alertflagler, and you can sign yourself up and go ahead and decide what you want to get warned about, so forth, and we'll call you on the telephone when warnings are issued. We recommend getting some weather apps on your phone that will also alert you. Also, it's good to have, they're old school, but they're very effective. Good to have a weather alert radio and properly tuned and all that. So lots of good ways to get warnings. You want to have multiple ways to do it. But, this is one of our public services to community, but one of the other things too is we utilize it for collecting storm reports. So during the severe weather that occurred on Saturday, we put 2 posts up looking for hail reports and wind reports, and we got quite a bit. With the wind reports, we got 100 responses there, 41 responses there, And so that was actually very effective in kind of getting a broad sense of what was going on. And then also we were able to use this information to summarize to the National Weather Service. We also monitor online weather stations. Flagler County Emergency Management has placed a number of weather stations across Flagler County. You can observe those by going to flagler.weatherstem.com. And when you click on one, you can click on the cameras to see what's going on in the area of that particular weather station. You can also get the winds. And so our spotters, sometimes our net controllers, will be watching these, looking for any winds that are greater than 40 miles an hour and for any suspicious cloud formations that meets the criteria that we've been trained to look for. And by monitoring those weather stations, again, it extends our presence. So there are changes to National Weather Service products that have come about. So we used to have a product called a Significant Weather Advisory. Those have been retired and largely replaced by the Special Weather Statement. And with within that Special Weather Statement, or SPS as it's known as, there's details on what the particular hazard is. Also, warnings now have impact-based information in them and also tags, and we'll talk a little bit about that. There's a new product called the Tornado Emergency. Unlikely we'll ever see one of those in Flagler County, but it means a very dangerous and destructive tornado is confirmed on the ground or in progress. Basically, all the old flood advisories and all that stuff, most of them have now been combined into generic flood warnings. It's less confusing to the public. Some of the lower level flood, like urban flood advisories and urban small stream advisories, and now get issued via the special weather statement. So all of these programs, all of these warnings rather, and advisories are no longer there, but they are conveyed via these other methods, either warnings or special weather statements. And in the special weather statement, they talk about what the particular issues are. Flash flood warning continues, of course. That is a big one right there. It's issued when there's rapid flooding expected, and flash flood emergency is issued when life safety flooding is occurring. So these are the products that we announce on the radio and that we dispatch and send out to our volunteers. So special weather statements, if they're for thunderstorms, gusty winds, or heavy rainfall, or anything else that's really impactful. All thunderstorm, tornado watches and warnings, flash flood warnings, any emergency evacuation orders like for a wildfire, anything that's an evacuation order that's rapid fire, basically. If emergency management or some other agency issues an evacuation order for a wide area and it needs to be done right away, we'll put that out over the air when we get that information confirmed. We remind our volunteers it's very important to minimize radio traffic as excessive communications could block someone else. Good example is somebody could be giving a long-winded response on the radio. Meanwhile, some other spotter some distance away is watching a tornado coming down to the ground, and they're on the radio and they can't get through because somebody else is talking. And for those that, we're not storm chasers, but for those of us that do go mobile, it's recommended that you just give one shout to saying, "This is FCA 1, I'm going mobile." And if net control isn't too terribly busy, they will usually answer you back. Keep in mind, though, net control stations can be extremely busy. Even if you don't hear them on the radio, they're busy multitasking with a whole bunch of other things. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But again, we want to try to minimize that communication. Of course, if you're mobile and you observe something meeting severe criteria, then, of course, call in with your location and all that stuff. One of the things we're considering too is condensing the warnings that the advisories, the special weather statements over the radio, just to minimize our footprint on the air. So instead of reading out the entire warning, we might just read out the highlights of it. This is the 3-tier level of response that we utilize here in Flagler County Assist. This is very similar to what is utilized by emergency management across the state of Florida. The lowest level is level 3. Generally, we go to that level for storms over rural locations or a warning does not impact populations or anything else that's generally a lower level storm. And this is generally net control discretion. Sometimes we've had severe thunderstorm warnings, but we stayed at level 3 because it was a low end storm. It was we did not have any reports of any severe conditions. In a storm, it was affecting a small area. But net control has their discretion to upgrade should conditions warrant. So level 2 is when we have a special weather statement or warning that does impact more populated areas of the county or if numerous storm reports start coming in. So sometimes too, if we just have a generic thunderstorm, we don't have any bulletins on it, but all of a sudden we got multiple people calling in and saying that we're getting golf ball sized hail without any of these products issued, our net control can raise it up to level 2 and establish a net and also relay those reports to National Weather Service. Level 1 is our highest level of response. We only go to that for tornado warnings, or if a tornado has been sighted or numerous widespread damage reports start coming in. We go to a directed net at that time. A directed net means that you have to get permission from net control before you can speak. These are the items that get reported to the National Weather Service. Winds over 40 miles an hour, estimated or measured. It's important to note that. Hail of any size. Remember, don't marble size it. So, in other words, we are trained to use coin sizes or other objects that are commonly recognizable. Everyone knows the size of a golf ball. Everyone knows the size of a grapefruit. Everyone knows the size of a quarter. Everybody knows the size of a dime, so forth, or a pea. But marbles come in all shapes and sizes. So that's why we ask for folks not to do that. Also, any sustained rotation in the wall, in the cloud, or wall cloud, or funnel clouds. Now, sometimes, especially along the sea breeze front, you will see clouds kind of twist and turn a little bit and do these little squirrely things, but those usually are not long lived. But if you see anything that's sustained, we definitely want to know about that. Of course, any tornadoes, any water spouts, disruptive flooding that's significantly impacting traffic or buildings. Of course, any weather-related damages, we want to know about that too. And generally, any meteorological condition that causes significant impact. And so with another part of our deal that we have here is we also train our volunteers when to trim back reports to the National Weather Service. Basically, if we have multiple reports of the same thing over a certain area, we'll come on the radio and say, okay, we got enough reports of the 40-mile-an-hour winds. We're not going to take any more reports of those unless they are unless they're over a wider area or a different location, or unless the winds get stronger. So an example of that, we could have multiple stations in Flagler Beach reporting 40-mile-per-hour sustained winds. After we get 3 or 4 of those, we'll say, okay, we got enough of those. Thank you. Just don't, only let us know if those winds get stronger, or only let us know if we start getting those winds at another location far away from Flagler Beach. So we're not besieging ourselves with the same information over and over again. Same with hail. We had a severe thunderstorm once produced golf ball sized hail. After about the 5th or 6th report of golf ball sized hail all over the place, we put an announcement out. Thank you. We don't need any more reports of this. But if you see anything that gets bigger, please let us know. Or if hail starts falling in some other location that's distant from the first location. And flooding, again, only the initial reports. So the bottom line is we only relay the initial reports. We only need those initial reports. No need to keep relaying the same things unless things escalate or change. So that's, again, trying to minimize and mitigate radio traffic as well as reports to the Weather Service so they're getting good quality information. So, drinking a little bit of water here, so I apologize. So what causes our networks to activate? Special weather statements, if it's for a thunderstorm or tornado, tornado rather, but if it's for thunderstorms, or if it's for very heavy rainfall or strong gusty winds or funnel clouds or anything like that, will activate at a low level. Any weather watches for thunderstorms or tornadoes, the same with warnings, will be an activation. Any reports of severe weather, even without a warning, will sometimes trigger an activation. Now, if a water spout gets reported miles offshore, that's not necessarily going to trigger an activation. It might trigger a notice to our volunteers to be on the lookout for such things. But if they get close to shore, that could trigger an activation. Any apparent strong storms without any kind of weather products issued, especially, or if we get strong storms and there's a watch that happens to be in effect, but we don't have any products, that will trigger an activation. Any other weather-related hazards or rare events that may prompt activation, such as very heavy rains, tropical cyclones, and even wintry weather like snowfall, stuff like that, or anything that's really, really impactful, very, very significant, like super fog, that kind of thing. Now, how do our net controllers stay informed? All of our net controllers have access to the National Weather Service chat system. And this is basically a text messaging or a messaging system in which we can communicate directly to meteorologists at the National Weather Service. Now, we access this through several different programs as a web-based client. And also we can use a little program called Pigeon, which is basically a little chat client. And so this is very similar to like the old America Online chat, that kind of thing. So that's how our net controllers have communications to the National Weather Service. But we also utilize some other resources as well. Slack being one of them. Slack is another, messaging program that we use internally in Flagler County Assist, but our operations officer has got it tied to the National Weather Service alerts. So when alerts come out, it'll actually ping in the Skywarn channel in Slack. We also have our volunteers, many of them sign up to INWS, which allows our volunteers to get text messages from the National Weather Service. And also we use third-party notifications like from AccuWeather. We have apps and email lists and stuff, and same with the Weather Channel, and also things like Alert Flagler, and so things like that. But these are good resources to help keep us informed of what's going on. FEMA is another good app as well. Now, when we're looking at severe weather that could be happening down the road a bit, what to expect in the days ahead, Storm Prediction Center, we go there, we click on outlooks, and these convective outlooks give you forecasts where severe weather is potentially, could potentially occur. In this particular screen grab, which was taken a little while ago, there's a marginal or low end risk up there, low end risk in Arizona, and low end risk up there. So what are these risk levels? This is the risk levels the Storm Prediction Center utilizes. Basically, most of the time when we get some of these notices, we're in this level, sometimes slight risk, but generally we're here. It's quite uncommon to get enhanced risk in Florida. It's very rare to get moderate or high. We've had it in the past, but it's quite rare to see that here in the state of Florida. And this also kind of governs how much we activate as well when watches are issued. So another good resource is the multi-impact briefing, multimedia rather, from impact briefing from the National Weather Service. Anybody can access this, weather.gov/JAX. Just find that little link right there, click on it, and it pulls up a good PDF and gives you a good briefing on what's going to be expected. So let's talk about watch versus warning. Watch means the conditions are favorable for severe weather to form, and generally you encourage our folks to keep an eye to the sky. Sometimes we will go up to a level 2 depending on the nature of the watch in the scenario. And warnings are severe weather is occurring or indicated by radar. If the storm is in your area, take shelter immediately. Most times we'll go to a level 1 if it's coming right at us, depending on the nature of the warning. Once again, sometimes we stay at level 3. Now, remember we talked about tornado emergencies. Again, these emergencies are only used for most extreme situations. We're most certainly going to level 1 for one of those. So here's an example of what a flash flood emergency might look like. And you'll see this commentary here, and you'll see this headline here. So impact-based warnings, this is a new thing, and these are designed to spell out the concern so hazards can be better understood by users. They also specify locations more clearly. Good example of that. Here's a practice severe thunderstorm warning, and these are impacts right here and what can be expected. And then these are the more specific locations that are under threat. Tags are used to highlight particular threats, and these are chiefly used in thunderstorm warnings, and they actually handle how the warning will be routed by the automated systems that direct these things, the things that set off alarms like the wireless emergency alerts in your smartphones, how it interrupts TV, all that stuff is all directed, is all coded, and so tags actually help change those codes a little bit to route the warnings a little bit more differently. If it's something that's much more serious, such as they use a tag called considerable, destructive, tornado possible, it'll show up in a warning text, and it actually handles on how the warnings are handled by the system. If you read the warning and go all the way down to the bottom, get below all this stuff, you'll see the tags down here at the bottom of the potential hazards. And also on Weather Chat, it'll also be indicated right beside the product. Now, PDS watches and warnings are particularly dangerous situations, and these are quite rare. They're only issued during the most extreme situations, and again, the narrative is indicating that there's potential for long-lived, dangerous tornadoes or exceptionally strong winds with severe thunderstorms. And a PDS warning is extreme severe weather is occurring or indicated by radar. An example of a PDS watch, you'll always see this commentary here. This is a particularly dangerous situation, and typically you'll only see that on high-end severe weather risk days. An example of a warning, and again, this is a particularly dangerous situation. We've had these types of warnings issued in Florida, very rarely, but they've been issued in the past. So the way a tornado watch or a severe thunderstorm watch will work, it covers a wider area. It's usually issued. Notice this one here in this example. This is actually from the tornado outbreak, groundhog tornado outbreak in February of 2007, and this was valid from 12:50 in the morning through 6 a.m. This particular tornado watch here. And so watches are typically issued over a wider area and for a good length of time. Warnings are typically issued for, at least thunderstorms and tornadoes, only issued for an hour to 30 minutes. Now, National Weather Service uses what's called storm-based warnings, so they don't just warn an entire county anymore or entire parish or what have you. They warn based on the path of particular storms. Storm-based warnings are only for part of the county in most occasions. Sometimes the entire county does get covered by one. These apply to tornado, flash flood, and thunderstorm warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings. There may be multiple warnings at the same time for different parts of the county. Watching warnings of oncoming storms, so our net controllers, if there's thunderstorms well off to our west and not near us yet, they'll start watching the warnings of these storms as they're coming and seeing how active they are, and it kind of helps them prepare. So what it looks like on radar: the yellow box, severe thunderstorm; the red box, tornado warning. Now these are several examples of storm-based warnings in Flagler County and how we respond to them. So this indicates a severe thunderstorm here in Putnam County moving to the northeast. And it goes right over Bunnell, Espanola, goes right to the middle of Palm Coast, Flagler Beach. So most times we are going to be going to a level 2 or level 1 activation. We're definitely going to be activating for a severe storm going this direction. Now, a severe storm that's over Boswick in Putnam County or very far western St. John's, moving south-southeast. And these are actual storms that had occurred. This one is not really affecting any populated areas just yet because there's no population out there and there's hardly any in Flagler County on our side of the lake. So on this type of a response, we're typically going to be just going at the bare minimum activation, depending on the nature of the storm. And if we have any mobile spotters out there, it might determine that. There's another southbound storm starting in St. Johns County, moving to the south. And we started over level 3, since we're kind of on the end of the warning box, but we could upgrade to level 2 if the storm holds together and keeps trucking. Another example of a storm-based warning and how do we respond to that? This is mostly up in St. Johns County. The Flagler County line here is Marine Land, Palm Coast, Princess Place, all that. And the warning polygon is just scooping in the very north of Flagler County. So in those situations, we typically are going to stay at a level 3. We will still activate spotters. However, we'll most likely stay at level 3 or possibly go to level 2 depending on how powerful the storm is and also how active we are. So here's an example of the 2007 tornado outbreak. Blues are either marine warnings and or severe thunderstorm warnings. You can see the multiple tornado warnings in Flagler County. You see things moving across there. And in the warnings that went south of us, after we got off the hook, we were very lucky. We had 4 tornado warnings that night, and we were very, very fortunate that we did not pick one up. But some very destructive tornadoes occurred with this. And typically, if you're going to see powerful tornadoes in Florida, they're most likely going to occur in late winter or early spring. So again, the process for activation: whoever's coming on is duty net control, checks the weather sources, logs on the National Weather Service chat, also monitors radar, so forth. And sometimes our net controllers are not sitting at home. Sometimes we're out and about, as long as they have a mobile phone so they can monitor all this stuff and have a handheld radio so they can communicate. So as long as they can do that, they can at least get the ball rolling. And generally, if our duty net controller cannot fulfill their day, then they can reach out to one of our backup net control stations. And we always have a copy of the emergency plan. There's a good checklist in the emergency plan that defines how to do Skywarn. And again, we remind our net controllers that if conditions warrant an increased level, can be warranted and they can affect those changes on their own. Now, another part of our operation is a feature called Skywarn Operations. And this is a position within our organization that's only activated during the most extreme severe weather events. All reports generally go to Skywarn Operations when activated. Sometimes when the emergency operation is staffed, we will act as Skywarn Operations. And essentially what Skywarn Operations does is they are not the net control station. Their only function is to be the relay point of hazardous weather bulletins as they come in. So if it's really busy, our net control station, their main focus is operating the net, watching radars, writing down logging calls, and doing all that stuff that they do. And net control stations can be quite busy, so they're trying to do all that. And now this was mostly the Skywarn operations concept was mostly more when we used to call the National Weather Service on the phone. Many times we just send it up through chat, which is not as distracting as being on a phone call. So imagine if you're trying to track 20 people on the radio and you got to pick up a phone and make a call and try to keep an ear on the radio at the same time in case somebody else calls something in. What this does, it frees the net controller up from doing that, and Skywarn operations in turn can just be the voice to the National Weather Service. So as reports come in, the Skywarn Ops officer will in turn just relay that information to the National Weather Service. That frees up our net controller to continue to be net control. And we also can establish liaison to other partner organizations. If there's one of our partner organizations is operating a network on amateur radio, we can set up a liaison station. Sometimes it can be Skywarn Ops or it can be a separate station to liaison to that amateur radio network from our network. It's usually used by most during the most extreme situations. An example, the last time we really used it was during 2007 tornado outbreak, but also during the hurricanes a few years ago. Generally how it works, net control still runs the net, but they can liaison to their Skywarn operations. So if one of these stations here reports hail, golf ball size, net control gets it, relays it to Skywarn operation, and their sole job is just to relay it to National Weather Service, while net control can continue to track their net, and also they can have somebody assigned to be the liaison to the amateur radio network. So if we get all those hail reports, that liaison can also check with them, saying, hey, are they getting those same hail reports too? And did you call it in? If they've already called it in, then we might not, because we don't want to both call in the same thing. But that's generally how this works. So again, in closing, how we report information, and also to our volunteers, how to report information. And our Skywarn net controllers use National Weather Service chat for most reports, including type of report. The other words we'll put in, like if it's a wind report, we'll type in wind report, Flagler County, Flagler Beach, at 14 hours, and then describe what the report is. And the reason we do that is that we're very specific on where we are. Chief reason being that many National Weather Service forecasters in Jacksonville know our county really well. They know where Cody's Corner is and stuff like that. Angie will know where those places are. Al will know where those places are. But a new forecaster won't. And also some other monitoring entity, because National Weather Service chat is not just used by us. It's used by many other organizations, including outfits like CNN, the Weather Channel, Fox Weather, and places like that. And so those folks are also can be watching our reports. So we need to make sure that our information is accurate and concise. If something major goes down and chat's not working, or if it's something they need to know about right away, we will pick the phone up and call the National Weather Service. It's typically during tornadoes, water spouts, wind damage, stuff like that. Sometimes we start getting one of these reports, we'll put it in the chat. If nobody answers it within a minute, then we call them on the phone. If something really major occurs, we also make sure the Emergency Operations Center is aware and dispatch, have them relayed to the duty officer. And again, only one station should be calling National Weather Service directly. And that's why I said it's important to coordinate with any partner organizations. Like if two of us get the same report via different means, and it's hail in Flagler Beach, really, if we can do it, only one of us should be sending out to Jack's Weather, so they're not getting besieged. They got 30 some other counties to monitor. And we remind our volunteers as well, if no net is going on or they can't reach net, our volunteers can call the National Weather Service directly. Again, we encourage all of our volunteers to keep this phone number with them in their phones, 1-800-499-1594. So that's going to conclude. And to our volunteers who serve us, thank you. We do appreciate you. And remember to read your emergency plan and keep that checklist handy. For everyone else that watched, if you're interested in volunteering with our organization, please comment, please reach out, and we can get you in touch and get you more information about our group and what we do. Everybody have a good day out there.